I have to fix it for real. Oh. My crappy Coda here has a multitude of issues. So many issues that I made an entire video to outline them last year, which you can watch up here. But since I made that video, even more issues have popped up. I know, you're shocked. One of which, the speedometer stopped working, which is annoying. But the biggest one is the thing you heard in the intro clip, that wonderful clunking sound that's coming from either one or both of the CV shafts. I don't know what's going on there, but as soon as that sound started appearing, I stopped driving the car, which was 12 months ago, and I'm just now getting around to it. I don't have a procrastination problem. I'll think of something to say eventually. I've only been looking at this for 10 seconds, but already, that's not supposed to move like that. All right, let's tighten these motor mount bolts that are very obviously loose. That is the wrong way. Oh, that was super loose. That whole assembly's held in by 3 bolts? Surely not. Well, if they were all loose, then that would explain all the movement. Just on the off chance that tightening those 3 bolts that hold the drive unit in place fix that, I'm going to zip tie the CV boots in place because they fell off somehow and take this thing for a test drive. Oh, that's worse. Oh, good Lord. Oh, it just fell out there. Yeah, it just fell out. Now I got to pry out the little tiny bit that's left of that CV shaft. Oh. Oh, God. There we go. Yeah. There we go. I completely dismantled and mostly degreased both of the CV shafts, and now that I have them lying out here on the table, the problem with the car is obvious. There's no CV shafts in it. I'm sorry. This is the left side shaft, this is the inside and outside joint, otherwise known as the gearbox side, and the wheel side, and this is the right side shaft, gearbox side, wheel side. To recap what was happening before the big clunking sound started, under acceleration on the right side, there was a bit of vibration and a little bit of noise. And then, of course, the left side had its thing, and then I stopped driving the car completely. Since the right side had vibration and noise, I inspected it first. I started with the outer joint, the wheel side, and these grooves in here on the outer CV joint, where the ball bearings ride in, need to be completely smooth, and on this side, they are not. You probably won't be able to see it on camera. It's more of a by feel thing, but there is a very slight dimple in the groove where the ball bearings will catch when the wheel is turned, which would cause that vibration. And then on the inner CV joint, where these ball bearings ride in here, there is no wear at all, actually. I was looking at this for a very long time and thought, well, it looks fine. What would be the problem? But then I looked inside. There's 3 little dimples in there where these ball bearings have been forced all the way to the inside of this joint and pressed in there, which quite simply means the shaft is too long. Do please try to calm down. And because this shaft is too long, these ball bearings are being shoved all the way inside of there, creating dimples on the inside of this joint, which may be causing the vibration, but regardless, that's not a good thing. Now, the left side, the one that was causing an earthquake, I don't know what the problem is. The outer CV joint, it doesn't have any signs of wear, no grooving, no pitting, it's fine. The inner CV joint, it doesn't have any signs of wear, no grooving, no pitting, it seems fine. So what's the problem? Well, again, I don't know, but I do have one guess. I was comparing the differences between these 2 inner CV joints. On the right side CV joint, the inner one, the wear marks where the roller bearings have been riding inside of here, the slightly lighter areas inside the joint, are really far inside the joint itself, which we already established because the shaft is too long, gentlemen. But on the left side, the wear marks where the roller bearings have been rubbing are very far outside of the joint, almost to the edge. My only theory is, and maybe this is what happened, I have no idea, is that I hit a bump or something, and this shaft overextended and the roller bearings popped out of the inner CV joint and caused mayhem. Again, I don't know if that's what happened. That is the only guess that I have. And the only thing that supports that theory is that the CV boot had been ripped off. By that I mean it had popped off, and when I pulled the CV shaft out of the car, this shaft readily fell out of the inner CV joint. So what am I going to do? Well, luckily Thunderstruck EV sells half shafts for Coda, so all I have to do is go on their website, buy 2, and put them in there. But I'm not going to, because I have a hodgepodge collection of random CV shafts from other Codas, and between all of these CV shafts and their parts, I think I have enough good parts to put together 2 good CV shafts. The right side outer constant velocity joint is bad, so I need to replace it. So I'm going to replace it with this outer CV joint, which happens to be connected to an axle that is 5 millimeters shorter than this one, which fixes my shaft too long problem. For the inner CV joint, since you can see this one doesn't have one, the roller bearing's missing, I'm just going to reuse the old one from the right side because it appears as though there's nothing wrong with it. For the left side, working on the possibly wrong assumption that these roller bearings slipped out of the inner CV joint and that's what caused my problem, I'm going to take the inner CV joint off of this half shaft and put it on this one and reassemble the outer joint as it was, because this joint is marginally longer than the one that came off of it, so if it did slip out, well, this will keep that from happening again. All right, my plan is immediately flawed. This bearing holder thing piece here, right, is too wide, and I can't access the clip that holds it in place, the ring to put the clip in that holds this in place. So I need to regroup and think of something else. Problem solved. I went and stole this inner joint off of yet another spare CV shaft that I had lying around. And the bearing race that goes inside of it is different. See, these bearings have freedom of movement rather than just spinning. The old ones only spun but were fixed in place. I don't know if that's better or worse, it's just something I noticed. And this will fit on the old shaft here. Oh yeah, get it all in there. Now you get to watch me attempt to put this joint back together. Okay, that part went smoothly. Now to get all the balls in. Oh, I got one! I think. More! Plop the spline shaft in there with its snap ring to hammer it in. Wiggle it around, get that grease moving around that joint, because right now it's real stiff. Okay, what's happened here is I'm an idiot, and when I was reassembling the outer CV joint, this little inner piece in here, I put it in upside down, which had 2 effects. One, this joint doesn't move because it's in upside down, but also the splines in here where the compression ring sits in that holds this in place, just a little snap ring. On one side, the splines are slanted, so it gives that compression ring an inclined plane to climb up and compress so it can be pulled out. But the other side, it's at a 90-degree angle, so the compression ring just sits in the ledge. So because I put this in upside down, not only does it not move, it's also permanently locked in place, so I turned this CV shaft into scrap. But thankfully, I still have enough spare CV components to assemble a working CV shaft for the left side. This is the shaft that was from the right side of the car. It was too long for the right side, but for the left side, it'll be good. I can take this outer CV joint and this inner CV joint off of this that was from a prototype car. That's why it's got the collar in the middle. This thing was crappily shortened by cutting it in half, cutting the middle out of it, and then welding this collar on place. Anyway, I can take the joints from either end of this, put it on this shaft, and then I choked on my spit in the most inopportune time. What I was going to say is, and then I'll have a whole CV shaft for the left side. I hope this works. There we go. Nope. That wasn't it. Oh. I bent the snap ring out of place. I'm going to murder a thing. I am having the worst luck with all of this. Okay, here's another snap ring. A compression ring, I guess it actually is called. Oh, finally. Jesus. No, it popped right out! Good! It bent the snap ring! Oh, God! Here's the situation. I kept bending the snap rings, so I don't have any more snap rings, compression rings in there. So the only thing that is holding this on is friction. And when I get the CV boot back on, the CV boot will also be holding it on. This is how I'm going to roll with it for now. I just want to see if this works. Got it. Oh no! What's the problem? I've been hacked! Uh-huh. What makes you think that? I just got a charge for a Netflix subscription. Don't you have Netflix? No. Uh-huh. Are you sure? No. Yeah, why don't you go ahead and check before you assume your credit card's been stolen or whatever? But it's such a pain to scroll through all my bank transactions to see if I've been paying for Netflix without realizing it. You should get Truebill for that. Ow. Why? What's that? Truebill's an all-in-one personal finance manager thing. You connect it to your bank account, and then from the app you can see all the subscriptions you have, and you can even cancel them from the app if you find any you don't want. Yeah, that sounds way better than sifting through this massive list of transactions myself. I'm gonna download it. Go to truebill.com/agingwheels. They're sponsoring this video. Video? Yeah, never mind. I'm setting it up now. Cool, it can do other things too, like lower your bills. It can do neat things like you can just take a picture of your internet bill and it can negotiate the bill down for you. Whoa! I got it set up and I have been paying for Netflix. You're right. Let's go ahead and cancel that. See? I know you weren't hacked. You just don't know where your money's going. Yeah, and it's telling me I have a fairly large number of other subscriptions I didn't remember getting, like Hulu and Motor Trend and Disney Plus, and I could go on if you want me to. Just cancel them. Okay, Truebill makes this easy enough. Just give me a second. See, that's why I suggested it. Way easier than manually hunting through your bank account. It could do so many more things, like you can set up budgets and... Wow! I canceled everything I don't want, and I saved $2,734 a month. What? How is that possible? Thanks again to Truebill for sponsoring this video. To try it out for free and unlock more features with premium, head to truebill.com/agingwheels or click the link in the video description. All right, let's pop in. Hodgepodge on the right side first. There we go. Oh, God. Whew. Now the even more questionable CV shaft. There we go. Oh! And all the time it took me to cobble together this CV shaft, I never once stopped to think, I wonder if this spline matches the spline on the inside of the wheel hub. It doesn't! So I'm going to be ordering a new CV shaft now. You can't say I didn't try. I tried really hard to make this work. Since I'm waiting on CV shafts, I went ahead and ordered 2 of them, by the way, I might as well move on to the everything else. Starting with the thing I'm looking forward to the least. This wheel bearing needs replacing because it's bad. Now, I didn't think you'd be able to hear the badness of the wheel bearing with the wheel bearing unloaded, but actually you can. Here's a good bearing. And here's the bad one. Pretty bad. Perfecto. Oh, the wheel bearing is in here. This might actually be easy to replace. Don't say that too quickly. Don't say that too quickly. In case you haven't seen the videos or you forgot, this car used to be a prototype car with a prototype drivetrain. A company called EDI was using this Coda and many other Codas to develop an electric drivetrain paired with a CVT. But the industrious guy that had this before me took this prototype drivetrain, ripped it out, and converted this car back to stock configuration. So he got rid of the smaller Chinese electric motor and the CVT that has no use being an electric car, and replaced it with this stock E-gear drive, Borg-Warner single-speed transmission, and the UQM Power Phase 100 that would have come in this car from the factory. That's why I've had so many problems with the front end of this car. I've had to replace both front wheel bearings twice, and I've had endless problems with the CV shafts because this car in the front end has been mucked about with endlessly. But that doesn't explain why this wheel bearing is bad in the rear, because no one's messed with the rear end of this car. It's just a wheel bearing that failed after 5,000 miles, and there's no excuse for it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to harvest a good wheel bearing from one of my many other Codas. This one does still have the CVT in it. Doesn't work, though. Go ahead and plop the bad one back on here. I'm not going to use this car. It doesn't have a VIN, so you can't even use it if you wanted to. Plop on the good one. Oh! The gauge cluster. As you can see, the speedometer is pegged at max, and most of the time the power gauge on the right side there doesn't work. It seems to be functioning somewhat properly now. So as of right now, the only gauge of these three that works is the state of charge meter, which I guess if any of them are going to work, that's a good one to work, but I'd like for the other two to work too. I don't know what the problem is, so let's do some explorative surgery. I don't exactly know how this cluster comes out, but there are two screws up here, so I'll start with that. Does this just slide right out? Holy crap. I was terrified I was going to have to take the whole dash apart. Say hello to a disembodied Coda gauge cluster. My speedometer tops out at 80 miles an hour, which is absurd because the top speed of the car is 85. But later Codas went to 100 mile an hour speedometer. They also had slightly different other bits of the gauge cluster. Now let's crack this thing open. I can see two screws and lots of clips. Ooh, there's no stop on the high end of this power meter, so very often it is pointed straight down while I'm driving the car. One more. Oh, there we go. And then pops out. Oh boy. Oh boy. Wow. What do I do in here? All right, there's some tiny screws here. I'm going to take a risk. I mean, it's already screwed up. What am I going to do? Break it more? Oh my God, it's so tiny. Oh, something already fell off. Sausage finger for scale. These parts are tiny, which I expected, but I didn't expect to find visually nothing wrong with these parts. I see... Oh no! As I was saying before I rudely interrupted myself, I see visually nothing wrong with these tiny gears. I expected to see a stripped gear in here or something visually wrong, but no, I see no problems. So I'm going to take apart this one now, which was also, let me flip it over, make sure, yeah, which was also a failing component. And again, nothing visibly wrong here. I went ahead and put this thing back together. I have no idea what the issue is, and therefore I have no idea how to fix the broken gauges in this thing. And then I pulled this one out of my blue Coda. It's slightly different, not in any way that matters, just slight design differences between the two gauge clusters. And I pulled it out to test something, and unfortunately, guess where the odometer reading's stored? That's right, in the gauge cluster. So it's not just going to be a neat and clean swap of gauge clusters to get a functional speedometer, is it? This one that came out of my Coda is reading 4,900 miles. This one's reading 3,900 miles. It's not a big difference, but that is a definite discrepancy between the two and counts as an odometer rollback. So I've got a choice to make. I can either put this one back in my Coda and have an accurate odometer, but a useless speedometer and power gauge. Or I could put this one in my Coda, have all three gauges function as they should, but have an odometer discrepancy. I chose odometer discrepancy. I think you would too. I have to have a functional speedometer, don't I? So to mark the occasion, I wrote on a piece of blue tape on the back the date of replacement. It says odometer reads 1,000 less than actual. I don't know what else to do, so I'm going to pop this in here. All right, let's try this out. See how all the dials move around? Didn't do that before. But now the mileage is almost exactly 1,000 miles off. You're almost right. I just reviewed the footage and it's exactly 1,000 miles off. The old odometer read 4,943. I can tackle two birds with one stone with this next one because this rear window is a little bit broken and this door lock actuator has stopped working. Unfortunately, the rear window fix I'll need to apply to the other side too because it's also broken. I just had to reference my own video to remember how to take this door panel apart. I forgot about the screw that's hiding right here underneath this trim piece. Okay, yeah, sticky goo, be gone. The door lock actuator sits right in here, and I was hoping that there was just a pin or something that had become disconnected. No, it's broken, so I have to take it out and investigate further. Come on, do an out. Do a remove. That wasn't it. I'm sure it's not, but looking in here, it looks physically impossible to remove this latch mechanism, which is bothering me. Get the lock actuator out. Not the whole latch mechanism, but I got the important bit that's broken out of there. Try to pry this thing open and see what's going on in there. Whoa! Yeah, that's broken. Yeah, this is the exact same type of lock actuator mechanism that was in the WeGo that broke in the same sort of way. Good. Certainly an easy enough thing to fix. All I have to do is find a non-broken actuator on one of my other Codas, probably the blue one. Problem is that I don't wanna. It means I have to go digging in another door. Then when I get the good actuator, I have to go digging in the same door again to put the new actuator in place, and all of that is awful. Got it. Wasn't quite as bad the second time around. Let's pop this one open and make sure it's not broken. Oh! It is broken. Well, I should say it's not broken yet. There's a big old crack here. It's gonna break very soon, though. Is this gonna be a situation like the trunk popper where it's guaranteed to fail, so I might as well make a new one? I hope not. Okay, I pulled this one out of Coda number 3. Let's see if it's good, or if it's also cracked in the same place, which is, it seems likely. Moment of truth. Yep, cracked in the same place. Right here. Not broken yet, but definitely cracked. So they're all the same. All broken. Okay, here's what I decided to do. This part, and the other one that I pulled out, is still usable, but this big old crack here makes it a ticking time bomb. It's only a matter of time before this splits completely and breaks off entirely. So, I'm going to bridge this gap here with some JB weld to hopefully prolong its life a bit. Probably not permanently, but it'll prolong it a little bit. First, let me drill a couple of little tiny holes into the plastic surrounding the area. Give the JB weld a little more to grab onto. Now to very lightly dab this crap in there. Try to get some in those holes. Like I said, I don't expect this to be a permanent fix. I just expect it to be a part prolonging measure. And we just let that harden overnight. You know, I have an amazing job. I make YouTube videos. I get to basically do whatever I want to on a daily basis. And I get to do a lot of fun projects, all thanks to you watching it. But despite this, I have a lot of trouble with motivation. Like a lot of trouble. And one of the ways I've found to cope with this motivation trouble that I have is to do little mind hacks. For instance, I'll set aside a task that I'm really looking forward to as the first thing to do on the next day, so that I have less trouble getting out of bed and getting started in the morning and getting out to the shop and getting started working. Once I get started working, then I have no trouble. So why then did I make the first task for today to install this door lock actuator? I procrastinated a lot this morning. I'm only halfway through the process, but I just made a discovery that made life a lot easier. There's a little piece of plastic right here that was only held in by 3 screws. I don't exactly know what it does, but I took it out, and that gave me access to the entire door latch mechanism, which made this job a lot easier. Done! That was legitimately not that bad. Finding out that I had to remove that piece of plastic was the key to everything. It made the whole job a lot easier, and legitimately only took me like 5 minutes once I discovered that. Now I need to get this window regulator out of here, and I don't know how that comes out either, so it's going to be a whole new journey of discovery. Hopefully it won't be bad. Yeah, ta-da! First of all, you can see how it works. You got a motor that spins a spool here, cable wraps around the spool, and it makes the thing that holds onto the window go the up and the down. There's 2 things broken with it. One is this cable is supposed to be wrapped around this pulley over here. It somehow, for some reason, slipped off. The other problem is there's this little tiny thing that clinches onto the cable down here that snaps into this piece of plastic. Well, part of that piece of plastic is broken off, so it will reliably make the window go up, but unreliably make it go back down again. I can fix this with epoxy, and I can fix this by just wrapping the cable around the pulley again. There we go. Okay. Is this impossible? Tappy tap tap. Got it. Today, this one has not slipped off the pulley, and the little plastic thing isn't broken. All right, lower. Does this one work? I swear it didn't work before. I swear it didn't. I already have it out of the car, so I might as well do something with it. On the left side, I need to put epoxy in here to fix it because this little piece of plastic broke off. But on the right side, that piece of plastic isn't broken off, so I'll just put epoxy in there to make it just a little bit stronger, to keep it from breaking off in the future. Might as well do something with it while it's out of the car since I went to all that trouble. I plugged this in to try it out and my epoxy fix broke instantly. So I pulled this window regulator that's not broken out of the blue Coda, and now I'm wondering, why didn't I do this to begin with? Would have been easier. The green screen, which is the little information screen that is piped into the head unit in this Coda, doesn't work. There's nothing being displayed here. The green screen is a video signal that's generated in the LMU, the lithium management unit, in the battery pack, and then it's piped into the head unit through the input for the backup camera. It's just a slightly modified off-the-shelf Alpine head unit, so that's what they did. Carl, my go-to source for information on Codas, recommended the simplest thing first, which is essentially turn the car off and back on again. Disconnect the high voltage and the low voltage cables, let it sit for about 30 minutes to let the capacitors discharge, and then try it again. I'll disconnect the 12-volt battery in the trunk first, which is fine because it actually needs to be charged. Then I'll disconnect the high voltage disconnect from the front. That just broke straight off. Good. I'm good at this. Then I'll pull off this high voltage disconnect from the front of the pack. This isolates the pack into two halves, which will hopefully disconnect, if I can get it off, hopefully disconnect the LMU. There we go. I'm getting it. Okay, 30 minutes have passed, and by 30 minutes I mean almost 24 hours. So let's plug everything back in. Great, that little piece I broke off is the snap connector. I'm gonna have to hold that down with something. I had to use a zip tie to hold this down. I bet the high voltage components on your EV aren't held together with a zip tie. All right, let's see if that worked, which I highly doubt. But it was the easiest thing first, so I might as well try it. Source, leaf. Look at that. Didn't work. Shocker. Woohoo, big boy. Now let's go pull a unit out of one of my other Codas. You know, the theme of this project. All right, I pulled this unit out of the white Coda. For the record, I don't expect this to work, but it's worth a shot because it's easy. Turn it on. See that it doesn't work. Probably ought to turn it on first. Nothing! Yeah, problem is not with the head unit, although it was worth trying out. That's not where the issue was. Cool. So that is one more variable taken out. As I expected, the problem was not within the head unit. The problem is with where the video signal is being generated from, which is the LMU, which is in the battery pack, and I'm not going to swap out the whole battery pack just to make the green screen work again, so I'm not going to be solving this issue for now. However, in the future, I do plan to swap out the battery pack in this car for the larger 36 kilowatt hour battery pack that I got out of one of my other Codas, and with that swap will come a new LMU. So hopefully, when I do that swap, maybe the green screen will start working again. If not, oh well. The last problem I had to check in this car is its tendency to overheat. So I did the only thing I knew how, which is to turn the car on and touch both coolant pumps to see if they're running. And they are. So now I'm out of ideas. I could probably do a little more research than that, but I'm dying to move on at this point. I don't know what's wrong with the cooling system, so for now it's just going to continue to overheat. Or maybe that problem has stopped out of the blue. I don't know. This car might do that. I have really bad news. The CV shafts that I ordered, they arrived. That's not the bad news. But when I was taking out what remains of the hodgepodge CV shafts that I threw in there earlier, that's when I discovered the bad news. In the beginning of the video, I noticed that there were only 3 bolts holding this drive unit in place, and that all 3 of them were loose, so I tightened them. But then I noticed at some point, look how much it's wiggling. I initially dismissed it, but then I got to looking closer. There's one bolt mount right here going into the gearbox, and there's another one up here. Watch what happens when I jiggle the gearbox. That's right, the second one has completely sheared off of the gearbox. It is broken in 2 in there. And there's another spot right there. You might be able to see it in the middle of the camera. See if I can bump the gearbox a little bit. Yeah, you can only see the broken mount point where the mount sheared off of the gearbox. So this entire 200-pound drive unit is being held in place by one bolt. One single bolt. Now, I've been thinking on this a little bit, and I think I know what might have happened maybe. As you can tell, I'm very sure about this theory. What I think happened to the CV shaft, why it was making that clunking sound, is because this inner joint slipped out, and one of these roller things got lodged on the outside rim of the CV joint. So every time it rotated, it would be pushed into the gearbox. At least I think that's what was happening. Now, when I started working on this car, the bolts that hold the drive unit in place were all loose, which may have been how this was allowed to slip out in the first place, because the whole drive unit was shifting that way, and this slipped out of its joint. And when this clunking was happening, as this was rotating and pushing its way into the gearbox had somewhere to go because all of those mounting bolts were loose. But then I stepped in, tightened all of those mounting bolts, but did nothing to this CV shaft, which was very likely still lodged on the outside rim of this inner CV joint. So when I took it for that test drive to see if it fixed anything, the gearbox was now firmly held in place, but this was still shoving its way into the gearbox on every rotation, and the end result was the mounting flanges sheared off. That's just a guess, but I don't have any way to prove that theory right or wrong, so I'm just going to assume I'm right. What a disappointing ending. I was going to go pop those CV shafts in the car and then take it out for a test drive, go get ice cream or something to celebrate. But instead, my drive unit's trying to fall out. It's broken in two major places. I don't know how I'm going to repair it. Now I have to go get ice cream to drown my sorrows. I don't know what I'm complaining about. I'm getting ice cream either way. I'll tackle this gearbox issue in a future video. Until then, thanks for watching. I need a break from this for now.